Hello, everyone. It's Darlene, you know that. Today is day 10 of the video challenge. Today, I want to talk about a subject that's a little bit dark, but a necessary topic. Toxic loyalty and the conspiracy of silence and how they work together. Why am I going to do this? Two reasons. One, over the weekend, I saw an article in the Wall Street Journal that indicated child abuse has increased, but reporting has decreased. Now we're going to go to the other side and talk about what happened with George Floyd as 4 officers stood by and did not intervene. Toxic loyalty, conspiracy of silence. So let me explain what I'm talking about here and how they're similar. I am a psychotherapist, as many of you know, and my background is clinical social work. Many people do not realize that social workers have provided much of the mental health services in the country for many, many decades. Now, this has probably changed a bit because now we have licensed mental health counselors as well as clinical nurse specialists. But at one time, it was psychiatry, psychology, and the understated and sometimes unknown sibling, social work. Now, I tell you this because before I began my practice in 1989, I started out in Central Mass, eventually kind of moved into Eastern Mass, at one point doing both together, but very briefly, a few years. Before that, I had a couple of jobs, but my first job was in child welfare with the Massachusetts Department of Social Services, which is now referred to as the Massachusetts Department of Child and Family, as it probably should have been right along. In any event, during my youthful years, I was a young social worker. I just came out of graduate school. I got an understanding of the phenomena of sexual abuse and its impact, its trauma on people. And prior to the 80s, they thought sexual abuse was a rare occurrence. They didn't even think it happened hardly. And then they started to discover, after discovering domestic abuse, that this too is something that happens in some homes. Hopefully not a lot, but it's there. They realized also that through the Vietnam vets, studying them and their response to this trauma, their own trauma, the battlefield trauma, that there was a similarity between survivors of sexual abuse and the vets. Flashbacks, trauma memories, fear of around safety, many things. PTSD is now, it's in the anxiety disorders, as it should be. I'll tell you all this because I really got an understanding of what it was like. Eventually, when I skipped over a couple of jobs, I went into private practice and specialized in sexual abuse and incest victims of it. And I learned a lot. It's very, very disarming to know and believe these things happen. The good news is people can survive. But the bad news is, as much as loyalty has its virtue, and it does. I mean, I'm a fiercely loyal person, and you have to work hard at having me not be. You can do it, believe me, and it's been done. But I tend to be loyal. But there is this toxic loyalty. So getting back to the child abuse, first of all, physical and emotional abuse are horrible. I'm not even going to sugarcoat that. But there's varying degrees. I'm not going to get into, the whole thing about it. Sexual abuse, in my humble opinion, not that physical abuse is safe. None of those things I'm in any way minimizing. But sexual abuse, I think from what I've witnessed, is the worst form of abuse because it's physical, sexual, emotional. And I tell you all this because what happens in some of these families, and let me just interject. People assume, oh, it's poverty. Oh, no. That's an insult to people that are poor or modest means. It's not always. It cuts across all socioeconomic backgrounds. And take my word for it, I have seen people in the middle and upper middle and wealthy classes. No, it is not. It occurs in those places also. But I'm going to tell you, I've seen some situations, more than not. I've seen a few where the family aligns with the child, as they should. What I often have seen are the adult children of sexual abuse. And when they have confronted the family, it does not always bode well for them. Believe it or not, parents collude. Even other victims of the family also will sometimes join, stick together, keep loyal, maintain that loyalty and that conspiracy of silence. And for some of the victims or survivors, however you want to frame it, they are ousted. So they have to be prepared if they're going to confront, which can be very healing, what the consequences can be. But this is an example of toxic loyalty. They will sacrifice the victim to maintain family order. Now, I tell you this, and I could give you a whole series about it. I don't have any of this based on research. I'm not a researcher. I'm a clinician, and I worked with people for many years and saw this phenomena and saw the impact. There's a lot of research out there now on trauma. Bessel van der Kolk, he wrote, I think, The Body That Heals Itself. And Me Too has brought some of it to the forefront. Jeffrey Epstein has brought some of it to the forefront. But I'm not going to spend a lot of time. Again, that's a whole seminar, and I do speak about it. I just don't put it as one of my speeches, but if people request it, I certainly could. I talk about this because the family is one system, the nuclear family, the family of origin, the extended family. We also have organizations that follow the same pattern. They're a system. In some ways, you could call them a family. For example, the religious community. I'm Catholic. I'm in the Boston area. Now I'm back in Central Mass. We know what happened with the Catholic Church, and they're not alone, but they had one of the biggest cover-ups. They're an enormous organization, institution. And even in my own high school, I found out that the headmaster and guidance counselor abused young men while I was attending school there, before and after, I believe, too. Horrible. I also heard recently, a friend of mine told me a relative of hers had been abused and still suffers from it. This person thought I knew. I said, no, I didn't know. And it haunted me when I learned, because it really reminded me, even though I've done this work for years, it reminded me how horrible it is. It's a horrible situation. The child is confused. Sometimes the perpetrator is the best friend of the child, the most nurturing. So I'll leave it at that. Now, you've got the family, the nuclear family, the extended family. You've got something like the church. You've got sports. Remember what happened at Penn State? Conspiracy of silence out of loyalty, toxic loyalty. And now we have what's happened with another type of family organization, a culture. Certain police departments, not all, but certain ones, and such as what happened in Minneapolis. That perpetrator, Mr. Darren Chauvin, I believe his name is, 18 counts. 3 other police officers looking on. Toxic loyalty, conspiracy of silence. If that video camera had not caught that, Mr. Floyd would never have even had his perpetrators brought to justice. We must all look at this. If anyone, I always say this, especially with the abuse going up, the most powerless. And you're powerless when you're about to be killed, too, as an adult. So it's not just children. But I tell you this because I felt I needed to talk about it. I thought about the similarities in the themes and the cultural impact, whether it be the family, a church community, a sports community, or the police, or any other sisterhood or brotherhood, that it's very tight and that they will preserve loyalty like keeping an infection and letting it fester rather than lancing it and having the courage to feel that excruciating pain, but allow and promote healing. That's all I have to say for today. Just some fuel for thought. We must always be aware, and we must realize that sometimes we have to give up what appears to be close and cohesive, which is really quite poisonous, in order to bring justice, protection. But it takes much courage, and that's not the virtue of courage, and that's not always easy to do. So I want to thank you all for listening to me. Feel free to private message me if you have any questions. I know a lot of therapists, speakers, writers, I'm in all these worlds that have endured some of this. Some have been more open about it. Some have been more private, whatever works. In the meantime, I want to give my message of gratitude to all those people that have been giving me wonderful messages on my videos, as well as the wonderful people in Video Rock Stars with Gina Carr and Barbara Barron. I forgot her yesterday. She's wonderful. And MJ Calloway, Richard Fabazzi, Linda Sherwin, Ian McNeil, Jane Herron, and I can't remember it. I apologize. This is where 60 is not the new 40. Have a lovely day and bye for now.